Are you all able to see the screens? So since my company is called Fable FinTech, I thought I'll start with a story. And so once upon a time, there lived a king called Barter. And as we all know, he finally died. But before that, stop moving. Like all people, one day King Cash also had to die. But before he died, everyone thought that his crown prince, which is physical, would take over the throne. But unfortunately, digital gagged physical, put him in jail, and became the king. And like many people who still like physical, people in the mafia, etc., they still operate their operations from jail. So Prince Cash is still working from jail for a few more years. So the objective of the story is that there has been some evolution. There have been choices that people have made. And let me assure you, while it's a monarchical story, each of these actions of the kings and the princes were endorsed by the people. So it wasn't that it was done against the wishes of the people. When digital put physical in jail, it was very much with the blessings of the people. Which comes to our topic today, which is to how do we collectively as the industry make global commerce safer and simpler. We have to start by keeping the customer at the center of all our discussions, of course, giving them the wide choice, like we all have choices, such as do we marry for money or do we marry for love? It's our choice. I mean, it's a fact of life, nothing big. Even superheroes have to make choices. So why deprive our customer of these choices? So I mean, the nearest analogy to what we should be building for our customers and for the ecosystem, in my opinion, was the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And I don't know, how many people have been tracking the Sydney Harbour Bridge. It's definitely not track worthy, but it's got a very, very fantastic analogy to what we're going to do today, which is it was built in 1932, 90 years ago. When there were 10 cars in Sydney, there were 6 lanes on the bridge. There were 2 lanes for trains, there were 2 lanes for bicycles and people, and it's been 90 years, and they've not needed to either replace it or complement it with another bridge. And if we build a system that is like that, which is reasonably future-proofed, trusted by everybody, and that's something which will be the right way of approaching this now that we've got the advantage of not having any legacy systems or too many legacy systems to fight. So what are we trying to solve for? We are trying to solve for payments that are less than roughly, give or take, $300,000 or $400,000. The $20 million, $100 million, $200 million transactions are very well taken care of. They're relatively higher hanging fruit. They're not standardized, difficult to get technologically driven. I mean, in a conference, I would very happily claim I'm going to change the world. But the answer, I'm trying to give you the answer that you would have to give or take or discuss in a conference room. We've all noticed many times, in conferences, we say things which are completely different from what we would say in a conference room. I'm just trying to bring the conference room into the conference. So we're trying to solve for e-commerce and predominantly small value trade or business payments, both for physical goods as well as for services, the gig economy, people working from home. My child's French teacher moved back to France from South Africa because of the pandemic. She doesn't want to come back. I have to pay her still. Now the classes are on Zoom, so on and so forth. So let's focus on the lower hanging fruit. If we can even solve for that, we would have done a great service to all our community. We don't have to boil the ocean, definitely not tomorrow. So what are the main enablers of these global commerce payments? The 2 big pillars are documentation and the payment itself, right? You need to have export-import certificates, bills of lading, bills of entry, invoicing, taxation, so on and so forth. And of course, once all that is good and everybody's happy, assuming that you're not a crook, you don't want to pay the other guy. So I believe that blockchain will play an important part, and we should all work towards making blockchain play an important part in documentation. And contrary to most people's belief, I think blockchain will still be a little bit away from the payment part. The payment part will be governed in the short to medium term by optimization, by reusing what is already available in a smarter manner, by making sure the orchestration is better. by making sure that the access is 24/7, so on and so forth. So it's all about optimization on the payment side and making sure the documentation is always up to the mark. But all of this will be done on the foundation of trust. So the person offering this service, whether it's a bank, a payment company, the e-commerce company themselves, so on and so forth, if they don't have the trust, then anything they do, people don't buy things for free if they don't trust it. It's a very simple, philosophy that cuts across whatever we buy or pay for, and that will be holding true for cross-border trade and commerce payments as well. So to encapsulate this whole discussion into one vision slide, we should be working towards an ecosystem that has got nice interoperability with each other. I've just named a few people. I'm sure there is a very long tail of a lot of entities that would be part of this ecosystem. Banks, merchants, fintechs, importers, exporters are just a few. There will be multiple players who will suddenly start playing roles which we really cannot envisage today. And the objective of that would be, without losing control, without being against regulation, without being non-compliant, how do we get into faster rollout? A few common issues before we close, a few common issues that I think we should definitely discuss as an industry. Number one, there are lots of hidden costs in these transactions even today. Sometimes they are by mistake, sometimes they are just out of lack of knowledge. We just need to make sure that we don't make these excuses. We should have platforms where we can send and allow somebody to request money. We should have platforms where we are aware of and we fight towards constantly reducing the fixed cost of transactions so that low-value payments don't suffer. And we should reuse and not reinvent what is not required to be reused and invented. After all of that is done, the most important part of a payment, whether it's for commerce or whether I'm paying a cabbie, doesn't matter, is always how to route it intelligently. And intelligence has got too many parameters and they're different for different people. I may prefer cash, somebody else may prefer an Uber app, somebody else may prefer a card. It's personal. The platforms we build have to give that person the flexibility to choose what's good for them, the routing mechanism that is good for them. That's how we've been looking at the world. So at the end, let's together, all of us, help make this world able to make the right choice at the right time. Thank you very much, and happy to take a few questions. Thank God I was articulate. No questions? Thank you very much for your time and your attention.